Hey guys, it is early in the morning on April 2nd. It's Thursday. And I'm getting ready to start another knife project, and I hope everybody out there is coping with the situation that we're all dealing with. And I won't go too much into it except to say this too will pass. So hang in there. This knife, the design is called a ring knife, and lots of companies and individuals make their version of a ring knife. And the main design feature about these is, of course, the ring. And what the ring is for is so you don't have to get a positive grip on the knife to get it out of the sheath. All you got to do is get a finger through that ring on the back, whether it's your index finger, depending on where you wear the knife, or your little finger, and just by pulling, it's going to be in your hand. That's the most important function. Rapid deployment, maybe under a stressful situation, and small. You need a compact knife. This is pretty much purely a self-defense knife, and it's going to be size-wise along the lines of this little trout and bird knife that I made. And was playing around with some blade designs. I want a simple, basic, and useful blade design, and a very minimal handle. I'm thinking black canvas micarta with carbon fiber pins, and the finish on this knife is going to be blued, not rust blued. I want to make these quickly, and I want to try to make these as affordable as I possibly can. So I'm going to be using this Birchwood Casey Super Blue. And Birchwood Casey, they make a couple of versions of bluing, and this to me is the best one. It just gives a deeper blue finish. And I did this knife with the Super Blue, and it turned out really nicely. And I blued this knife. This is green canvas micarta, and it has carbon fiber pins. But I blued this knife as an afterthought, and that was one of the nicest things about it, is I could blue the steel even after the handle was on, because this micarta is not going to absorb anything. So I think it turned out nicely, and the nicest thing about a product like this is you can get this at any sporting goods store, and as you bring the knife in and out of the sheath over the years, of course, you're going to wear some of the bluing away. And you simply can just clean it with some denatured alcohol and just touch it up, and the bluing will be back. So it's a finish that the user can maintain, and it just mutes the knife, and that's what I'm going for, is just a muted look, nothing shiny. And this was more of an experiment, but yeah, I think it turned out pretty well, and that's what we're going to go for on this. Now, this was mirror polished and then blued, but I'm only going to take this up to about a 600 grit hand finish to keep everything a little less glary, and then we'll put the Super Blue on there, probably a couple of applications, and we're going to get started on this. Now, the design feature of a ring knife is, of course, the ring. The ring needs to be big enough, obviously, for your little finger to get through, or your index finger, depending on how you wear your knife. But again, it's you find the ring, you've got your knife in your hand. That is the whole idea behind these things. So we're going to play with the drawing just a little bit more until I transfer it to aluminum, and then I can get that aluminum pattern in my hand, and I can make any changes that I want. But I've put a lot of thought, and you can see the eraser marks, and I've played with the design a lot, and I think this is close to what we're going to end up with as an end product. And it's going to be made of O1, obviously, because we're going to have blue it, and you just can't blue stainless steel. And we'll do the proper heat treatment on it, and it'll finish out with about a Rockwell 58 on the hardness C scale. And I'll bring you guys along for the little different steps. There will be some other things you'll see going on here for the purposes of weight reduction. Probably a series of holes drilled to reduce the weight of the knife, and then those are going to be covered by the canvas micarta scales. But they will reduce the weight of that knife, and it'll still be nice and strong. We're going to be using 1/8 inch by 1 1/4 01 precision ground flat stock. So I'll get started and bring you back for just little steps along on the build, and let's see how this turns out. Alright, so the order of operations, the order in which I do things is going to be kind of important. I have, I'm going to start out with just these 2 1/2 inch holes just in the field back here. And of course this big hole, that's going to be pretty good weight reduction. The blade is going to stay rather thick up in this area and then taper. And there's going to be a false edge ground, similar to how I did that Bowie knife for Pat. And depending on the laws of where the owner is going to reside, this false edge can either be sharpened or not, because some states have laws against daggers, which would be a double-edged knife. So I'll leave the option to grind this to a sharp edge if that's what the customer wants. So anyway, I think that removing this metal, and of course this big piece of metal is going to balance the knife out. Now on the aluminum pattern, the actual working pattern, these aren't going to be holes, they're just going to be holes large enough, probably 1/8 inch, just to get a transfer punch on there and transfer these. But before I grind any shape, what I want to do is go ahead and drill these holes in the bar stock, holding it in the vise by the straight edge, obviously, because there's no good way to hold something like this otherwise. So I'll do that on the aluminum too. Now the first aluminum pattern I make is going to have this hole. This is a 1 inch diameter hole, and all I did was I just took a slitting saw with a 1 inch arbor hole, and I tried that for size, and that seems to be just about right. So that became this hole. And as I said, these will just have pilot holes, and I'll just plunge through them with an end mill while I have it secured in the vise. Location of these holes isn't real critical. I just want them sort of centered so I have an equal amount of metal on both sides of the hole for strength. And the prototype pattern, there's going to be 2 patterns. One's going to have the hole in it so I can get a feel for this thing and change anything before I make my real pattern, and certainly before I commit it to tool steel. So I'll make one with this cut out first just to get a feel for it, how it works in my hand, and then we'll make the working pattern where all of these dots you see are just going to be pilot holes. These are the pinholes for the scales. The handle scales are going to run from here to here, just following the contour of this hole. Black micarta, black G10, whichever. And I'll come back when I have the first prototype pattern made, and then we'll make a second pattern that simply has the holes for layout, and that'll become our permanent working pattern if I like the way this feels when I get it into 3 dimensions. Alright, so this is the aluminum blank that the this first prototype pattern is going to go on. So the first thing I did was I lined everything up, and I just took this center punch and laid it in the center there and located that hole. I'm going to go over to the milling machine. I'm going to drill a 1 inch hole, and everything starts with that point, and then we'll go ahead and cut out our profiles. And if I like that, I can just overlay this back onto the stock, and I can locate these holes. I had the aluminum blanked out, so now I can at least hold it and feel it, and right away I'm seeing some changes that I want to make that you really can't imagine when it's just a paper pattern. One of the things I want to put in here is a little receiver here, right here, for my thumb, just to help lock that in and get a better secure hold on the knife. And I might do some light checkering right in there, some sort of serration, not aggressive, but just enough to give you a positive grip on your thumb. And then of course I have some more work to do back in here to get that fine-tuned. Now this back here, I'm going to provide some sort of breaker point on the back, and this is all big right now, but I just want some sort of little projection back here, theoretically to maybe break glass, or if you choose to do a non-lethal type of blow, you put that across the bridge of somebody's nose, it's going to get their attention. Just saying. So, going to work on something like that, and of course this can be thinned up and evened out. So I'm going to play with this just a little bit more, and when I get this down to where it's something that I like, then we can go ahead and put it into tool steel, and we can make this thing into a knife.